And so when you live in a Belong property, we are setting aside a little bit of money in what we call karma bucks for every on-time rent payment that can be used at a later point in time to put a down payment on a home. You can also look at it through the lens of what is the percentage of like the lead volume that we get. Because some
Yeah.
channels like
Yeah.
SEO, we don't actually spend a lot to do it, but drives a high
Right.
portion of the leads.
Hello, hello, Martians. Welcome back to another episode of Marketing on Mars. Today, we got a special guest, David Bakey. He is currently the CMO of Belong, which is essentially like Airbnb, but instead of short-term rentals, it's for long-term rentals. And they've recently raised a $50 million Series C round. So excited to dive into it. David, before Belong, worked at Harry's, companies like Harry's, Daily Pay, lynda.com as a senior marketer. And lynda.com, by the way, was acquired by LinkedIn. So a very experienced marketer. Super excited to have him on the show and talk a little bit about how the company Belong grew to such a large company and raising so many different rounds of capital and the cool things that they're doing. So David, thanks for coming on to the show. Very excited to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me today. I appreciate it. Looking forward to the
Yeah,
conversation.
me as well. Me as well. So before we do anything, let's maybe tell us a little bit about your background. I know I gave you a pretty crappy version of an intro of you, but if you can tell us a little bit about your background as a marketer, how you got to where you are now at Belong, and basically your journey as a marketer, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. My journey has actually been both in what I primarily consider performance marketing, growth marketing, and digital product. And many of my experiences early on were in subscription companies in the digital space. So lynda.com was probably if I go back that far, one of the larger companies, and I was running growth marketing for Lynda, which back in the day was a lot of digital. It was paid media. It was optimizing conversion rates from the traffic that came to the website.
Right.
And many of the channels that people sort of take for granted today were channels that at the time were like very nascent. Facebook was just becoming a thing. Podcast was just becoming a thing. So we were testing all these channels, trying to figure out how to spread the word of skills-based education or ed tech. We ended up many years later selling the business to LinkedIn. And from there, I ended up switching careers kind of a bit to a company that was selling physical products, which is Harry's. Joined Harry's pretty early on, came in to run customer acquisition for them. And that translated into, over time, a more holistic growth marketing role. And then for the last several years, I ran the entirety of the direct-to-consumer business, which was paid media. It was our engagement channels like email. It was our digital product experiences, the website, our pricing, our packaging, CS, analytics. And many of the things that we did were, the sort of growth engine of the company, if you will. Like, can we efficiently deploy paid media dollars out in the world to drive new first-time subscribers to Harry's and Harry's.com and our, men's shaving products, and optimize all the experiences along the way, driving, the best ratio that we possibly could for CAC to LTV.
Yeah.
We ended up leaving Harry's after about 5 years there, and shift industries again to fintech, where I was at Daily Pay and running the growth engine at Daily Pay. Daily Pay was like a B2B to C business, and I ran the B2C portion of that business,
Okay.
trying to get as many of our eligible employees as possible to download the app and use Daily Pay and become engaged. And now I'm at Belong and overseeing our growth efforts, which is our sales team, as well as our marketing efforts as CMO. So CMO is, half of what I do. The other half of what I do is the growth engine.
Nice. So you're still very hands-on at Belong.
Yeah.
Would you say?
I've actually, for what it's worth, I've been hands-on at pretty much every role that I've ever played. And I think that's partially just how I like to operate. I want to be in a position where I can really genuinely support the teams of people around me. And if I'm not able to go deep enough, then I'm not truly able to provide the level of support to my team. So I like to say that I pass the D, keep the A, pass decision making rights to the team, but keep the A, as in I'm the one who's ultimately got to be accountable. And so in
Nice.
that environment, you kind of got to go deep to be able to really truly support those around you.
We might have to quote that: "Pass the D, keep the A." That's a good one. Um,
Nice, yeah.
but yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, unless you're working for a massive corp where you have 50 plus people under your team, then maybe you'll have to be more strategic and you can't get into the day to day. But it seems like most of the companies that you've worked at have been in a perfect kind of sweet spot where you do you're still hands on, and I think that's what makes a good marketer a good marketer. Like, you kind of have to be hands on, and you kind of have to be touching some of the buttons in order to know what's actually working and what's not working, right?
100%. I mean, I think you certainly have to understand how things work so that you can ask
Yeah,
the right questions, you can probe the team, you can get them to look in places that they might not have thought to look. And,
exactly.
that's, you kind of have to know how the sausage is made or how the engine runs to be able to, I think, truly be helpful to those around you.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, people listening, I mean, if they haven't already, they should go check out your LinkedIn. You've been a marketer for many years. You've been marketing basically since even before lynda.com. You were doing some form of marketing. So for the last kind of
That's right.
decade or so, you've been doing marketing. And imagine if you, as a senior marketer, haven't been hands on. 12 years of not touching a single ad campaign with your hands. You can imagine how far the PPC world has changed in the last 12 years. You would have no idea how the dashboard even looks, how things have changed, and how all the different bidding strategies that are available now that probably wasn't available back then, right? So you kind of have to be hands
100%.
on as a senior marketer. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, you're spot on. Like, the pace of change in this industry is quite high. This dates myself for sure, but going all the way back to like my first role, even probably my first two roles, there was no such thing as Google Analytics, which is the primary platform that most people kind of
yeah,
use to track the basic
yeah,
marketing that they do. There were no UTM tags. One of the earlier companies that I was at, we developed a system that was very similar to that, with codes that we could add on to URLs that could track back the things that we were putting out into the world. So even things as basic as that, just like a lot of these things now exist that didn't before, but in a much more
mhm,
sophisticated way. Every year the platforms change. They change how you can target people. They change the mechanism that it uses for optimization, the
yeah,
types of creative that you're able to upload into the system. Those shifts in the platform, the shifts in the industry. I think that you don't necessarily, like, if you're sort of sitting in my chair, you don't have to be the absolute expert on every single thing that you do, but you do have to
yeah,
have a pretty deep knowledge of how every one of these types of tools work so that you can ask the right questions to your team to make sure that they're sweating the details, that they're uncovering all of the sort of things that matter and turning over all those right rocks. Um,
exactly.
and there's some component of like muscle memory to it as well. Like, if you know one channel really really deeply, you probably therefore know the right types of
Hmm.
questions to ask in the next channel that you go do. And so at least go deep in some places so that it translates to the other places where, if you might not have the bandwidth to go deep there, you at least kind of know what to ask.
Man, I love this. This is a very strong way to start the show with some deep kind of marketing insights already. A lot of knowledge gems in the first 8 minutes. Before we dive any further, let's do a tradition that we do. I kind of told you just before the show. We have a tradition on the show where we start off the show with a shot of hot sauce. I've got same hot sauce for the last 3 weeks. I'm in South Korea right now, so this is one of the most popular hot sauces currently. What do you have for us today? What is your weapon of choice today?
I have This is like a quart-sized bottle of Tapatio,
Oh wow, that is huge.
and
Yeah.
I think because mine might not be as hot as yours, I am willing to have more. I will make up for
Okay.
in quantity what yours has
Quantity.
probably in quality.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is like it's like capsaicin, which is like concentrated cayenne peppers.
Okay.
It's not as hot as some of the stuff I have back at home, but it is hot. So I'm gonna pour probably like 20%
All
of the
right. I
bar.
will pour mine.
I'm just gonna be careful because my last episode was bad. I think I told you about this before the show. It took a little too much, but cheers. Welcome to the show. Thank you. This is gonna be great.
Yeah. Oh, no, I underestimated. It was hotter than I was expecting it to be.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
All right. Now I'm pumped now.
Okay, now we're ready. Now we're ready. All
I
right,
can feel
so
the freshness coming to my cheeks already.
yeah. Okay, so let's just start from the very, very top. This episode is going to be about Belong and how Belong grew to where it's at right now. Let's start from the very top. I've given like a short version, but what is Belong? What are you guys trying to do? And what's the business model and how do you guys make money?
Yeah. Let's start with the mission.
Yeah,
Belong's
okay.
mission is really to keep homes in the hands of real people. And with that as a mission, if you think about what's the problem in the space that we're playing in, right, which is long-term home rentals. The problem is that there's historically been limited financial stability for the homeowner and really poor
Right.
experiences for residents. And if you think about like why those problems exist, it's really
Mhm.
because historically there's been two primary players in the space. What I will call like the big mega investors that are going into communities, buying up all of the homes. I'm not going to name names or point fingers, but
Yeah.
you've read about these companies on the news or heard about them, and they'll go into a community and literally buy like 10,000 homes, take everything
Mm.
off the market in terms of inventory, and then be the exclusive landlord in that community. And that's a
Right.
really bad experience for the residents that live there because those companies care so much more about yield than they do about real people living in their homes and the experiences those people have, that they're more incentivized to not make repairs and keep homes in disrepair. They're more incentivized to push people out the front door so they can bring new people in and charge placement fees and things like that.
Mm.
The other player in the space are the individual homeowners that want to rent the home themselves or the small property managers. And I think by and large, those folks really want to try to create the best possible experience for the resident, but they're just not set up well to do it. They're not tech enabled. They don't have large enough portfolios to be able to offer some of the financial services that we do. And so there's this very interesting white space in the middle of like the big mega investors on one side that provide a poor experience, or the mom and pop or the individual owners that want to do better, but they just don't have the tools to do it. Belong sits in the middle of this. So we
Mm.
work with homeowners to handle everything for them for their long-term rental, soup to nuts. Say, hand over your home, and we are going to first send our own team of inspectors and professional servicemen and women into these homes, and we're going to fix them all up and make them great. Then we're going to send professional photographers to the home, take amazing pictures of it. We're going to do 3D tours, and we're going to place amazing residents into your home. And once those residents are placed, then we are going to guarantee your rent, right? So if that resident
Okay.
doesn't end up paying the rent or they're late, that's on us. Don't worry. So there's a component of financial stability that comes along with working with Belong, where we're getting your home listed faster than many others in the industry. We're placing top quality residents that live in your home who are going to have amazing experiences and stay a long time, and we're guaranteeing your rent along the way. So we make money, of course, with a small management fee that we charge. That's very similar to how a small mom and pop property manager might charge a management fee.
Right.
And if you think about Belong as a property manager, you're sort of only thinking about it as like part of the story. We actually don't consider ourselves a property manager.
Hmm.
That's sort of like one tier of what we do of four. And those four tiers are like property technology is one,
Okay.
insure tech or insurance is another,
Right.
financial technology or fintech is a third, which is really like our lending solutions. And then fourth is in-home services. So businesses that are like Thumbtack or like Angie, we have our own team of in-house pros. So prop tech, insure tech, fintech, and home services. I'll
Hmm.
pause there and I'll let you react to some of that, and I can go deeper in any one of those areas.
Okay, so the very first one you mentioned was just like the home care part where you go in and you fix up the home and all that. Does that kind of go into I'm assuming the homeowners pay for that, right?
They do.
And then
Yep,
okay, so they pay for that. Um, and
that's right.
then the insurance part, like you're ensuring that they're getting their money on time. So whether let's say the renter doesn't pay for like a full month, you guys front that payment, right?
We do.
What if it never gets collected? Is that just all on Belong as well?
Yeah, so we the short answer is yes, it would be. The way that
Okay,
our guarantee works is that we are bearing the risk of that for the duration of the lease. Now, if there is an extended period of time where the resident isn't able to pay, we're of course reaching out to that resident to try to understand what's going on and see if we can help them in some way. But if they're not able to pay, then we'll go through the process of trying to find a new resident for the home, and we'll be fully communicative with the homeowner throughout that process.
okay, okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
And then the other part you mentioned was that it's like tech enabled. Does that mean like
Yep.
you guys have like an app or something where the renters go on in order to communicate with you directly, and also kind of like an Airbnb
That's exactly right.
app?
Yeah. So iOS app, Android app, and there's a version of it that is both for the resident as well as for the homeowner.
So a
So in
separate
that app,
one,
separate app, exactly.
separate
Same
app.
app, but
Okay.
you're sort of when you log in, then we figure out who you are and point you to the right experience. But the majority of people, if they're renting a home, they're paying with like a paper check or with Zelle or PayPal. But
Yeah.
with Belong, we have payment collection right inside of the app. So all you have to do is log into your app. You can hook up your bank
Mm,
account and you can pay your rent right from there, which makes it more secure. It makes it very easy to send payment on time. And if anything ever goes wrong, we have somebody that's dedicated to your account 24/7. So if there's a repair that's needed or maintenance on the home that's needed, you can chat with us, you can send us a message, and usually within minutes we're getting back to you and we're fixing the problem for you. Sending somebody out from our own professional services team that can assess what's going on and make sure that so all of that when we say tech enabled, all of those
yeah.
experiences sort of live and are kind of enabled with the app itself. And
Yeah.
it's different than like how a lot of other property managers operate, where it's a little bit more analog. You might have to pick up the phone and call somebody. They might not answer. Maybe you send them a text message. Maybe they're able to get somebody out to your home, but because those pros don't work for them, they're calling up a local electrician or plumber or whatever the sort of crisis is. That person may be available, they may not be available, right? So our level of service, which is tech enabled from the way that you communicate to us, but also with how we like schedule and service the home,
Mm.
a much higher level of service in that way.
Wow. And I guess in the future, when you guys have so much data on renters and also homes as well, you can kind of even go further, like a hotel.com or like Expedia, where they can offer rewards and stuff. I don't know if that's already happening on the platform, but that's like an additional incentive or like a value prop, right? For like
That,
an app like yours.
yeah, that is exactly right. And we do some of that today with plans to go much deeper in that direction. So the reasons why a resident might choose to live in a Belong home, first and foremost, they're like they know the home is going to be clean, it's going to be well maintained and taken care of, and they're
Right.
going to have a great experience working with us as a company and not somebody
Hmm.
who is only out for the sole interest of making the sort of, in their case, landlord, in our network, we call them homeowners, but to make them more money, we care equally about both the homeowner and the resident. We also believe that homeownership should be something that is available to everyone. And so when you live in a belonged property, we are setting aside a little bit of money in what we call karma bucks for every on-time rent payment that can be used at a later point in time to put a down payment on a home. We are
Oh,
also working on, this isn't launched yet, but in the future, every on-time rent payment will also be
yeah.
recorded and reported to the credit bureaus to help you boost your credit, right? So anybody out there
Wow.
that's a homeowner, one of the big benefits they get is that they have every single month an on-time payment of their mortgage, theoretically that's boosting credit. But many people that are renters don't afford, they're not afforded that same benefit. So, we're
Hmm.
building all the piping to be able to report everything to the credit bureaus as well. So,
Wow.
and like you can imagine how this story plays out over time, which is that somebody that lives in
Yeah.
a belonged home, they have a great experience. If they ever want to move out, maybe they move to a different city and they see a belonged home for rent there, they kind of know the experience that they're going to get, and they would look for that first. And it also, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, it looks like you're
Yeah.
going to say
Yeah.
something.
Because, like, let's be honest, the rent prices have been increasing, and
Yeah,
at this rate, people are probably. I think I've read somewhere like the length of time that people are renting long term have been increasing longer and longer. So people might be increasing long term for like maybe before it would be 5 years. Now they're renting for like 10 years at a time. So it's like a long duration. So
yeah,
when you get these additional benefits, these whatever those
like the
extra
karma
those
bucks. Yep,
yeah, the karma bucks or like anything in the future, that really it kind of compounds over time if you're renting for 10, 15 years,
totally. Yeah, there's also, we've talked a lot about, we want people to belong in the place that is best for them. And there are people that, want to rent because that is their choice and they view it as a better experience. And let me get like your share, like in our Los Angeles market, as an example, there are residents who are high income individuals. They live in homes in the Belong network that rent for somewhere between $12,000 and $15,000 a month. So they're not inexpensive places to live. They could
Mm.
probably afford to buy a place of their own, but they choose not to. And the
Hmm.
reason why they do that is because they're sort of getting this very curated, live at a hotel type of experience, but in a house of my own. And
Right.
that is totally fine. Like in
Yeah.
that scenario, the homeowner is super happy because they've got an asset that is rented out the majority of the time. You've got a resident that lives there that lives in an amazing city and an amazing home, and everything is sort of taken care of for them. And so, we don't want to create this sort of marketplace where your only incentive is to try to make it to the other side of the marketplace. For people that aspire to be a homeowner, fantastic. We want to help you every step of the way. But if you also aspire to stay a resident in somebody else's home, like that's fantastic too. And let's create the best
Yeah.
possible experience for you. And in the future, we're in something that we're working on building behind the scenes right now is the ability for those individuals to own fractions of properties across the
Hmm.
network. So you would still
Hmm.
get to benefit from the increase in the price of the asset class without having to actually own a property of your own, right? So home
Hmm.
ownership without having to actually be on the deed of a property through
Wow.
fractional shares.
Wow. Amazing. So let's unpack all of this. You guys have raised a little bit of money, $50 million recently in a Series C, but you've
Yep.
raised a much larger amount. You've raised several different amounts. How much has been raised so far to date?
Yeah, about 140 million in total between debt and equity.
Okay. So the 50 million was just C round, and there was other and like some of the investors were pretty big. Can you name some of the investors that have invested in the past?
Yeah, we're really fortunate. So a fantastic group of investors, both the companies, so A16Z, Battery Ventures, GGV, but also the individuals at those companies that are helping us are just so
Mm.
incredibly thoughtful. We work with them on a monthly basis as we're running our plans past them and getting guidance. So we've been been really fortunate with our investors and the way that they've supported the business so far.
Right. And you guys have expanded into many different markets. You mentioned a few of them. Miami was one of them. What are some of the other markets that you're currently in?
Yeah, so we're in San Francisco Bay Area. We are in Seattle, Washington. We're in Los Angeles. We're in San Diego. We're up in Northern California. We're in Sacramento. We are in Miami, Tampa, and Orlando.
Okay. So about 8 or 9 different locations currently.
That's right. Yep.
Okay. And how many
With varying
homes?
degrees of sort of maturity of those markets. Some of them we've been around for a while. Some of them we're
Right.
just now getting up and running.
Okay, cool. And how many homes does that account to? Like how many total homes are under the portfolio currently?
Yeah, we have about just north of 2,000 homes right now.
North of 2,000 homes. And that has increased a lot during COVID, or did COVID slow things down a little bit for you guys?
No slowing during COVID. I think what we saw was a little bit of a shift in where those homes are located, especially in the
Mm,
Bay Area. You saw people moving out of some of the larger cities like San
right.
Francisco, moving
Yeah.
to the East Bay, moving to the South Bay. In a world where people can work from anywhere and be remote, people wanted to
Yeah.
do that with a little bit more space, have a yard, live in a neighborhood.
Mm,
Bay Area is pretty big, as I'm sure you know, and so
yeah.
we saw no slowdown, but it was just a little bit of a shift geographically in terms of where those homes were popping up on the network and residents were looking to live.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, now with 2,000 homes, where are you guys at right now in terms of revenue? Is that, I couldn't find anything online on that. Is that something that you can share?
We're a private company. We're not going to disclose the revenue numbers. Hope that's
Mm,
okay for the podcast.
yeah. That's oh my God. Okay. I think the Martians are trying to say something. Okay. I think we got to take a shot of hot sauce, but that's
Oh
okay.
man.
We'll do it together. Um,
Okay.
uh, we almost made it through. We were 26 minutes in without them catching us. That's fine. We'll do this. We'll do this together. Cheers.
Cheers.
Okay.
Whoa. I got to get a little water. It's getting spicy.
It's getting spicy. Okay. So, where were we? So, revenue undisclosed, private company. That's fine. But you have 2,000 homes, growing quite a bit. Um, so you guys have grown from 0 to 2,000 homes. In how many years has it been since Belong started? Since like very recently, right?
Yeah, I think the company. I'm actually relatively new with the company, but I think the growth story started about 3 years ago. Maybe
3 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, what were some of the channels that was it just all the typical culprits like PPC, SEO, like all those major channels? Like maybe like walk us through some of your major marketing channels.
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the usual cast of characters you've touched on, the PPC, the SEO, that one, yes, the short answer. And if you think about why that might be, we have people that are already looking for the type of service that we provide. The way that they think about it is property manager in their area. So they go to Google, they look for that. Suppose you were in, Berkeley, California, you might type in, Berkeley property manager. So we try to show up for as many of those relevant searches as we can. And then we explain why we're actually not a property manager, why property management is broken and what we're doing to fix it. Come talk to us
Mm,
and we'll explain it to you. We have a lot of other channels though. If you kind of think about how like property management is an industry, there's a lot of people who are competing for those same homeowners. There are comparison websites that we are able to show up on, curate those experiences. There are people who are, excuse me, sorry, I'm like joking on this hot sauce. Um, there are homeowners who are like trying to list the homes themselves and do it on places like Zillow or, um, you know, hot pads or other places. So we actually have some outbound efforts where we reach out to those homeowners and we
Oh,
say, hey, it looks like you're trying to list this on your own, and we wish you the best of luck. If you don't want to end up doing that on your own, or if you end up finding it hard to find a resident, just come work with us. We'll find the best people to live there. We've got guaranteed rent, and so we're pretty successful with our outbound efforts of targeting these folks. So we've got both
okay.
inbound, outbound, and sort of review comparison sites are kind of like our biggest channels.
Okay. Review comparison sites. All right. So review comparison sites, that's good for obviously for kind of legitimacy, right? Because you're right up there on right next to some of the biggest sites like the Zillows and the Airbnbs of the world. So that's very good, just from
Yep.
a customer advocacy standpoint, but also very good for SEO. I assume getting that backlink back to your site is probably very powerful. Um,
It really
in
is.
terms
Yep.
of so in terms of maybe just in terms of like budget, marketing budget, if you can talk about total budget, marketing budget, great. If not, even a percentage, like what percentage of your marketing efforts are put into towards PPC versus SEO versus outbound efforts, just so we can know what are some like what are the main focuses right now.
Yeah. Um, I think the way to think about the answer to this question is you can look at it both through the lens of like, what is the percentage of the spend? You can also look at it through the lens of what is the percentage of like the lead volume that we get. Because some
Yeah,
channels like
yeah,
SEO, we don't actually spend a lot to do it, but drives a high
right.
portion of the leads. I probably will not share the total amount that we're spending on marketing, but I can give you the breakdown of how those channels sort of play out. Um, which our biggest paid channel, it's Google, and that's across both search as well as display, performance max, etc.
Yeah,
And the next biggest channels for us are outbound. That's number two, and then the third biggest channel in terms of paid is our review websites where we're sort of paying for placement on those sites.
yeah,
And
yeah.
if you would look at it through the lens of where the leads actually coming from, Google paid search number one, organic search number two, followed by outbound, followed by our comparison sites.
Yeah. And I'm sure all the money that you're paying for Google Ads and all the outbound and the review platforms, although not directly, but indirectly helps boost your organic as well, because now people are searching what is belong, right?
It
So they're,
absolutely does, yeah. And
yeah, it's
we've,
just difficult to attribute exactly how much of that spend is going towards that. But yeah,
it is, yeah. I mean, so we put in place, and this is pretty common practice for most sort of performance growth marketers. A how did you first hear about us survey?
yeah,
Somebody goes through the flow on the website, and after we capture their information, we say, hey, how did you first hear about us? And so we can attribute some
mhm,
of it back to the things that we do that are top of funnel.
yeah,
We have pretty active presences on social. We actually have all of our professional services team. They've got, sort of belong magnets on the side of their car. So people hear about it
okay,
and see us organically as well. People have really good experiences with their neighbors. Actually, referral, I neglected to mention this, but our referral efforts are pretty powerful for us as well. And we get a lot of people that are in the network that are referring both homeowners and residents to belong as well.
yeah.
Um, so that's a a top three channel for us as well.
Yeah, I mean, referral networks, referrals is so powerful for any business, whether it's B2B or B2C, right? Referrals is just key. Creating a good referral program, sometimes that's where, that's the secret sauce. I think B2B maybe a little bit more difficult, but B2C probably a little more similar. How does the referral programs work with Belong?
Yeah, so we basically do like a flat fee. Anytime you refer somebody, then that person becomes a homeowner with Belong, you get $1,000.
A
So
thousand
the
dollars.
reward that we pay is fairly high,
Yeah.
and I think that in my experience, there's two things that matter. One is, what is the reward, and is it something that's going to be interesting enough for me to want to do this? And then two, like, is this a company that I'm really, excited to go share, and did they make it easy for me to do it? Like, those are
Yeah.
the two sort of like factors that matter. And we see a lot that, like, people are like, well, $1,000 feels like a lot of money, so they're pretty excited and pumped to go do it. But they also feel really good about sharing Belong because of the experiences that we're creating, both for the homeowner and the resident. I mean, to put it in perspective, um, overall, the property management space has an NPS, Net Promoter Score, of about -10. Belong, for homeowners, has an
Yeah.
NPS of 70, right?
Holy
So we
smokes.
are orders of magnitude different. And I think that
It's like
when
an
people get
80
into the
point
network and they're like,
difference.
oh my God, what's that?
That's like an 80-point difference. It's
It's like an 80-point
massive.
difference.
Yeah.
It's pretty massive. It's pretty stark. And so a
Yeah.
lot of people, for that reason alone, they're kind of excited to share it. We're not getting
Hmm.
rid of our referral program by any stretch of the imagination, but I wouldn't be shocked that if, like, we said, hey, we're not going to pay anything, and would you still refer? A lot of people probably would. But
Oh, wow.
we still have, $1,000 for any referral for somebody that becomes a homeowner, which is exciting for a lot of folks.
Wow. Um, do you guys do, because when I think about a go to market strategy, one of the first buckets is customer advocacy, which you guys have very strong NPS scores, 2,000 homes. What are the stats on? I don't even know the stats on the number of renters, but I assume that's quite large as well. What are you guys doing in terms of the customer advocacy side? And yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Be more specific with the question. Sorry, I want to make sure that I understand. When you say customer advocacy, what do you mean?
Yeah, like customer testimonials. You
Hmm.
guys are doing, yeah, a lot of referral programs, so that's part of the customer advocacy. But like in the
Yeah.
public eye, do you guys do a lot of videos and public facing stuff with your customers as well?
Yeah, great question. So we do. We have like a fun tradition where anytime a resident moves into a Belong home, we actually like show up. We have people that like come with balloons, a box they're opening up, and like, here's the keys to your new
Oh,
home. We have movers in our network that can help get all of your stuff into your home for you, almost as if a friend was going to come over and like help you move, right? And we document a lot of that. We take pictures along the way. We get a picture of like the homeowners holding the balloons in front of their house. We ask them what they're most excited about and what they have
yeah.
plans for when they move into the house and things like that. So we try to capture, in as authentic as a way as possible, some of these real life experiences of the residents moving into the home. We of course are, as a company that prides itself on being a very customer centric company, we're asking for feedback every step of the way. And actually, one of
Hmm.
the one of the sort of pieces of feedback that we got is that we ask probably for feedback too often. But we're so laser focused on just trying to understand from our base, right? Both the homeowners and the residents. What can we do better? How did that go? What can we do to improve? Call us, talk to us, send us a note. But in many of those experiences, if they're sharing something really positive, then we can use that. We can put it up on the website. We can promote it out in the real world. We also see that we get, just in a very unsolicited way, lots of 5-star reviews that show up on our
Hmm.
Google profiles. You search for Belong in a certain city, we show up on Google Maps, and those things consistently have 5-star reviews, and we're not even really asking people to go do it. So I think that speaks volumes
Wow.
to the experience that folks have.
I mean, when you give such a unique experience like balloons, you're giving them a gift. I mean, I know it's a very small investment to make, but that just goes to show when you think outside the box and really think about the experience of the end user. I think it speaks volumes. I mean, when was the last time you walked into a hotel or whatever and they gave you balloons? That's very,
Right.
very unique, right?
And the
Um,
and the premise for it, I mean, there's obviously a portion of us feeling really good about those experiences, but we do it because it makes very tangible business sense, right? We
yeah,
have some of the lowest
yeah,
turnover rates in the industry, the highest vacancy rates. Our times to list are super impressive, relative to what we see with other property managers and the stories that we hear from homeowners. And
yeah.
so we're doing these things because we think that they're cool, but we also know that those just drive like very tangible business value for us, and they make a lot of financial
Mm.
sense for the homeowners as well.
By the way, what are the, if you don't mind, I don't know if it's shareable, but like turnover rates, occupancy rates, what are they looking like with Belong Home?
Oh, my friend, I feel like this is going to lead us to another shot of hot sauce here. Like
Oh
I
no,
can't,
again.
I can't share the actuals, but I can say that something we look at very closely, and we are industry leading.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad that you guys are
Oh,
industry
man.
leading.
Darn it.
We should have planned this a little bit more in advance. That would have been a little bit better. Okay. You know what? Let's do a little bit less for this one. Because I don't want you to hurt your stomach. I got another call after this too. But cheers.
All right. Cheers.
All right. So
Ooh. All right.
we'll have to do this in person one day,
Indeed.
just so we can feel this. But okay. So you guys are industry leading. By the way, how do you? Be careful with my next question. How do you? How large is your? Because a lot of this, passing over the balloons and constantly asking for feedback from your existing customers. Okay, should turn off the light, Martians. Um, that requires a lot of support from the customer service team. Is that a very large team at Belong?
Yeah. So we have two different types of what companies traditionally think of as customer service. One is member success, and that team is basically the team that has an individual that is assigned to every home and homeowner. That is the person that you're going to call. They know everything about your account. They know who's in your home, how long they've been there, what the maintenance issues were, etc. And every time a new homeowner comes into the network, they're assigned effectively like a team captain from the member success team that is going to be their primary point person. Then we have, separate from that, we have what we call frontline support. So because we have 24/7 support, and your team captain who's assigned to your home, they do sleep and eat, and they have weekends and things like that. If you ever call up and that person isn't available, you will be routed to our frontline team that has 24/7 support, where they can pull open your account, find out anything that's going on. They can deploy service professionals to fix maintenance problems, etc. So we do have a pretty sizable team. We also have a sizable team of in-market service professionals, the people, the
Mm.
general contractors, the home inspectors that can take a look at your property and figure out what's going on. We've got what we call our pros, people that can actually show up and fix things, maintenance, repairs, large projects, even.
Are they on
And
a contract
also,
basis or a full time basis?
now these folks are all W-2 actually with Belong. So we keep people employed full time, and that makes it so that we are able to do background checks on everyone, hire really, really great people, and it also over time allows us to provide a service level that is cheaper than if you were to just outsource some of those services to a third party.
Wow, wow. Okay, so quite large. Um, so we mentioned a lot of the different platforms, PPC, SEO, and all these other platforms. It seems like PPC, between PPC and SEO, are probably the two most effective channels so far, organic and Google. Um,
Yep.
what's next for the next 6 to 12 months? What are some things that you guys are looking to test out? Different initiatives or different platforms, maybe more video marketing or TikTok or whatever. Like what's kind of in the horizons for you guys?
Yeah, great question. What's interesting about Belong is that we have to be incredibly laser focused on finding folks that have an extra home that they want to rent out. They're looking to be part of the sort of long-term renter community or
Yeah.
that side of the marketplace. That in a lot of ways sort of informs the channels that we go test next. Um, some of the ones that we've actually tested recently and have seen very positive signs of results are webinars,
Okay.
which, if you think
Webinars.
about like the types of companies that use webinars for marketing, it tends to be more B2B. We're B2C, yet we're still
Mm-hmm.
deploying that very same tactic where we can find homeowners that want to show up. We have experts that come on and they can share information on like what are the best cities right now to invest in properties, or how might you think about structuring your expenses in the right way for taxes, that type of information.
Oh wow.
It draws a lot of potential homeowners that come in, and then following the webinar, we call up those homeowners and we talk to them about using Belong as a service. Another channel for us that's really interesting and the early tests have shown a lot of promise are direct mail, right? And if you think about that is almost
Hmm.
like an extension of our outbound efforts for finding people
Right.
already and calling them up and saying, hey, we see that you have a home. You want to talk to us about helping you list it and finding a great resident to live there. Direct mail is another way for us to reach those same people, do it on their own terms. They can probably, put the direct mail piece with a magnet on the refrigerator for a couple months until they're actually ready to have that conversation, scan the QR code, and it will call us, and then we can hop on a phone call with them and talk to them. We've got a lot more plans for how to improve our organic SEO, more localized content on those pages that help us get ranked
Right.
organically. We do pretty well in like sort of the national rankings, but a lot of the markets that we service are local, and so we're getting better at that.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think that's
Updated
also
landing.
a push. That's also a push towards Google to be more laser targeted for localized and more relevant content. It's kind of been something that Google has been working on for the last 5 years, but a lot
Yeah,
more focus on localized keywords.
yeah, I think that is spot on. And there's because there are many local property managers that live in each of these markets. That's really sort of who we're competing against. And if
Right.
you can get these people on the phone, you can tell a super compelling story about how we're tech enabled, the local property manager isn't, how we have insurance, how we have, sort of our financial technology. One of the some of the other things that we didn't talk about, just feature wise, that separate us are if something in your home breaks, we have what we call split it, which is effectively fix now, pay later. Let's say the water heater goes out, it's going to cost
Mm.
$3,000. If you're
Yeah.
working with a traditional property manager, that's on you as the homeowner to write that $3,000 check, which is kind of expensive.
Yeah.
What we do is we spread that expense out over the course of the next 12 months, and we deduct a little bit from the monthly rent that's coming in. So it's not so much of a disruption
Um,
for you as a homeowner. Those types
wow.
of things are the reasons why you would choose us in a certain market. So from a local advertising perspective, the what we think is a big opportunity is, right, we look at these local property managers and then we just compare ourselves to them and say, here's all the ways that we can do it better. Plus, we have local market expertise. We have a general manager who sits locally in each market. We have these pros and general contractors that sit locally in each market. We have a pricing team that understands the nuances and ins and outs, so that the local market understanding, the local content, the local team, doubling down on that. And that's not necessarily a channel per se, as much as it's a thing that is going to make every channel that we are in, both inbound and outbound, more effective.
More effective. Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yeah.
David, I think this has been an amazing conversation. We're at 58 minutes. We're probably going to have to say goodbye, although I wish that we can have a longer conversation. Would love to dive deeper in so many different things. But maybe what we'll do is we'll end it here, and we can try to maybe set this up for the new year or something, where we can learn a little bit more updates. Maybe we can get some more of the numbers that we could not get from you on the next call. But before we close off, any last things that you'd like to share, kind of new things that you guys, initiatives or campaigns or any general marketing tips, things that you want to say to the audience?
Well, I mean, look, thank you so much for having me on, doing the shots of hot sauce. That was quite a bit of fun. I appreciated getting the opportunity to share some of the channels that we're in and how things are going, and explain a little bit about the business. We're really excited about this coming year and some of the trends that we're seeing in the market in terms of, there's higher interest rates, which means that fewer people
Right.
are buying and selling, which means
Yeah.
that you have like a pretty strong rental market right now, which I think is something that benefits both homeowners and residents, and certainly Belong is keeping a close eye on things we can do in that space, because of the sort of larger market dynamics that are going on. So again, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate getting to spend some time with you, and
Yeah.
hope you
Yeah,
have
we'll
a
definitely
great.
let's definitely do it again. And when I go back to Vancouver, I'll up my hot sauce game. It'll probably be a little bit more spicy than this, although it's hard to imagine because that's pretty spicy. And but yeah, thank you so much.